We've got a live streaming. Social media live streaming. May I request Mr. Sunit Tandon, Festival Director, to join us on the dais, please? Something urgent, looks like. Yeah. Anyway, friends, a very warm welcome to this afternoon's press conference, one of the very important press conference and conferences which we had all been waiting. That is the Country of Focus press conference of IFFI 2018. As you all know, to promote cultural exchange and to enhance friendly bond between India and other countries, it has been a tradition to have a country of focus in every IFFI, and this year we have Canada as the country of focus. And this year also happens to be the 150th anniversary of the Canadian Confederation. It's an honor for us to have Canada as a country of focus here. Most of you, the media friends, must have watched a lot of Canadian films that were screened. I'll just run through them. We had Closet Monster, Don't Talk to Irene, Eye on Juliet, Meditation Park. Old Stone was the opening film. I mean, that was the film that opened the festival on 20th of November. Then, yeah, I mean, it was the 21st of November, Country of Focus opening film. And then we had the Reveners and the Allure and the Stairs. And on the dais, I have His Excellency, Mr. Nadir Patel, High Commissioner of Canada in India, representing the multicultural country that Canada is. Mr. Nadir Patel has a vast experience in public administration with an MBA from New York University, London School of Economics, and HEC. I mean, that speaks volumes themselves. And we also have Egoyan, who is a very special personality. He is the chosen one for the Lifetime Achievement Award to be conferred at the IFFI 2017. Mr. Sunit Tandon, the Festival Director, I'm happy that, he has also graced the stage. Now, I would like to invite His Excellency, Mr. Nadir Patel, to give his opening remarks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Manish. And let me just, first of all, begin by extending a huge congratulations to Sunit and the IFFI organizers, as well as the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, and all of those that have made this festival an extremely huge success. And we're very, very delighted and proud to be the country of focus, Canada. And it doesn't get any better than for us to be able to feature not only a dozen Canadian films, but also to participate in the witnessing of a Lifetime Achievement Award being bestowed upon Adam Egoyan, a terrific Canadian, a brand ambassador for Canada, and what we refer to as a Canada 150 ambassador as well. I simply wanted to open up by saying three things. First of all, we are very proud to be here as a country of focus. It didn't start here and it won't finish here. This is a part of a series of efforts we have to really ramp up areas of collaboration in the Canada-India relationship that we want to focus on much, much more. You know, when we look at two-way trade, which is up 30%, or investment from Canada up $15 billion in the last couple of years, or the fact that all of our business, commercial, education, and other metrics are booming right across the board, we want to make sure that we also balance the relationship and focusing on areas that go beyond pure business and trade. And of course, while there's a trade and investment dimension to creative industries, there's very much a cultural, creative element as well, because we feel that focusing on other areas makes the strategic partnership between Canada and India that much more balanced. And frankly, I believe that the more we focus on creative industries across the board, culture, art, that includes film and television and sport and fashion and literature, the more we focus on these areas, the relationships become that much more deepened and enhanced. The second thing I'll just mention is Canada does, in fact, boast one of the most significant ecosystems of film, television production, post-production in the world. And with about $20 billion of economic impact or activity towards Canada's GDP in this space and about 250,000 jobs, it shows that the talent ecosystem is extremely significant, as are the incentives and the reasons to consider Canada as a place to shoot, to produce, to post-produce, and to do business from the perspective of films. And Adam Egoyan and many others who have been here at IFFI the last week or so are a testament to that success. And then the final thing I'll just say is that I'm certainly not the only ambassador of Canada with respect to India. Filmmakers like Adam Egoyan and others who have been here are very much playing a role in not only enhancing Canada-India relations, but being ambassadors of this relationship. And if you really think back to, when I was a lot younger, thinking about Canada-India, it wasn't the trade and the investment and the business metrics that would come to mind. It was always about the film or the art or the cultural elements. So the impact of folks like Adam and others is far greater than what we can actually measure, and we don't really realize that, which is one of the reasons why we really wanted to celebrate his success and the success of all Canadian filmmakers that are presenting here over the past several days and into the next day and a half or so. I'll just acknowledge Meditation Park. We're very, very thrilled that this is the Focus Country screening, making its world premiere here later today. And when you take a look at this film, it's a reflection very much of what Canada's focused on. It includes themes of women's empowerment, it includes themes of diversity and building communities in a place that is Canada. And as Adam raised with me, we're a product of what Canada has to offer in terms of opportunities like no other. And this is one thing that Canada and India very much have in common. So thank you for taking the time here, and I'll turn it over back to Manish.
I know that Sunit, you need to leave, but I just want to thank you once again. I've been invited and I've shown many films at the festival. I've never been able to find the time, and it's so wonderful to be here after so many years and to be receiving this honor. I just wanted to thank you personally for so many years of support, and thank you. And if you do need to rush, because I know that there's some crisis you're attending to, feel free. I do feel that my career, and I am an ambassador of 150, which is why I'm wearing this shirt, it's a very privileged position, but I also feel that it was very fortunate that my family decided to move to Canada. I was born in Egypt. We left when I was of a very young age. We moved to the west coast of Canada, and I began to dream of theater and films. My parents always said that that wasn't a very good career, and so I went to the University of Toronto and studied international relations with the idea of becoming a diplomat. But while I was there was a film club, and I started making short films, and I was seized by an excitement to tell stories. And the country really allowed me that opportunity. I started very small. I was fortunate enough to receive Arts Council grants from the Canada Council, Ontario Arts Council, the BC Cultural Fund. I'm from the province of BC. That's where my family went when we came to Canada. And I'm realizing the more I travel around the world that this is quite unique, that many countries do not have this system of cultural support that has really been enshrined in Canada and has allowed me to have the career I've had. But it has also allowed great writers like Margaret Atwood, Alice Munro, who's a Nobel Prize-winning author, certainly great musicians, Leonard Cohen, Neil Young, Joni Mitchell. These are people who have been raised through a system where they were encouraged and were allowed to grow. And even though eventually they were able to find commercial success, they were nurtured through a very unique system. And it's something that I've come to appreciate. I'm very grateful for this, and I'm very grateful also to the world of festivals. My career has really been built up by exposure through festivals. When I was younger, I was traveling to all these festivals and really trying to understand that this is a wonderful way to share my personal stories with the world. And now to be here is very overwhelming. I think that this is there's a very particular relationship that we have with India because, and being here in Goa especially, I understand this notion of diversity and this idea of being able to find a way to make a mosaic work. It's certainly an identifying feature of this country, which is a very ancient tradition. And in Canada, we are dealing with an experiment, an ongoing experiment of diversity. Also, discovering a very rich history with our Indigenous people, which is something now as an ambassador of Canada 150, the country in some ways technically is 150 years old, but we have a very ancient relationship which is 15,000 years old with our Indigenous people, and we're still trying to navigate and negotiate that. It's a very complex time for us as we come to terms with this history, which is still mysterious to us. So I think I'm very, very aware that Canada has a unique place because it is an example of how different people can actually negotiate narratives which are at times at odds with each other, but can somehow find a way to unify and to grow. So we're very proud to be here. Thank you.
Quick words from Mr. Sunit about what it means to have Canada as a focus country.
Thank you very much.
I can spare you for the Q&A.
Yes, I shall completely disappear. I'm so sorry about that. My apologies to all of you. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, it's really a pleasure for us to be hosting the Canada Focus. The High Commissioner himself has taken great interest in this focus. We had meetings with him, we had conversations, long conversations over months on email as well as on the phone with the people at Telefilm Canada. It was curated by TIFF, the Toronto International Film Festival, the 8-film package that you see. And of course we have 3 films by Atom Egoyan also in the film festival. We are very happy to host you. Atom has been a legendary filmmaker as far as I'm concerned, because I've been working in the film festivals a long time ago in the 80s and 90s, and that's when Atom actually broke onto the scene as a filmmaker. And I remember his films coming regularly to our festival at IFFI, at that time in Delhi or in various other places. And so it's a pleasure indeed, a great pleasure for us to welcome you here. Your films were always very popular with our audiences. People thought that they were remarkably thoughtful films. And we are really delighted that you agreed to accept our Lifetime Achievement Award, which you thoroughly, richly deserve for your cinematic output. Thank you very much indeed. It's a great pleasure to have you here. Thank you very much, High Commissioner, for all the collaboration we've received from the Government of Canada, from Telefilm Canada, from TIFF, and all the other agencies which are involved. You have a red carpet of Meditation Park, the world premiere, this evening at 5 o'clock. I would have been there, and I was going to be there, but High Commissioner, my apologies once again. Something is going to keep me away from it. And then later on, I hope to be able to make it to the reception that you have so kindly organized, and we'll take it from there. But once again, my sincere apologies to all of you for having to leave at this point of time, and I'll see you a little later. Yeah. Thank you very much, and all the best to all of you for the entire retrospective, and indeed, we are looking forward to the presentation of the Lifetime Achievement Award to Mr. Atom Egoyan tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Sunit, for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, as the festival director has to leave, I open the floor for Q&A. One by one, we will begin with the lady there in the second row. Santoshji, please. Mike. We'll begin with the ladies first. Yeah? Okay.
High Commissioner, I have a great pleasure to see you here.
Speak into the mic.
Okay. So I would like to ask you a question, since focus country is Canada, and we are happy that you are here, but would like to know, as a High Commissioner, you are very busy. Have you seen any other films, or only from your Canadian films you have seen?
So let me just say, first of all, with respect to the festival, I literally just landed about an hour ago and came straight here. And the reason for that is I love film and I love to watch films, but when I'm at an event like this, I want to showcase Canada as much as possible, and I like to relax and enjoy films in the comfort of a less busy work pace. That said, we've had a very strong presence here for the past several days. We've had Cameron Bailey, the creative director of TIFF, who of course curated the 8 films. We've had April Mullen, who was here, filmmaker, actor. We've had a number of other filmmakers, and of course our Consul General and the team from the High Commission have been very active over the past several days to showcase Canada's presence here. And I'm looking forward to seeing the film later today, but also a number of others over the next little while.
Good afternoon. My name is Patel from Israel Cinema. My question goes to Mr. Egoyan. First of all, congratulations on the Lifetime Achievement Award. Big fan. This week here after is a masterpiece, in my opinion. My question to you is, can you please point out 2 points, one negative and one positive, of your experience in the industry development during the years?
Well, the positive is what I said, which is that I think it would have been very difficult to have, well, Sweet Rafter is a very good example. That's a book that was optioned by an American studio, and at a certain point it became clear that they could not make that film within that system. And I approached the author and I said, I can make it in Canada. And he gave me the rights, Russell Banks. We made the film as a Canadian movie. And then it entered into the American distribution system and it received 2 Academy Award nominations, and it was incredibly well received critically. But this is a film that couldn't have been made there. It was made because there was an opportunity within Canada to take risks, to be able to take a subject matter which was difficult, but allowed me and trust me with the ability to tell that story in a very particular way, without the American star system, using Canadian actors, using an ensemble, using an unusual language. That's the positive side, and many filmmakers will attest to that. The challenge we've had in English Canada especially is finding a domestic audience, because we are so overwhelmed by American culture. And we have found that our greatest successes are from artists who have received recognition south of the border, and then that's reflected back into the country. I'm speaking of English Canada. Quebec, the French-speaking part of our country, has been able to find an indigenous culture, and it has its own star system. But English Canada has this challenge that we are on the border with American culture. So that's the negative side. But that's why festivals are very important for English Canadian filmmakers and for French Canadian filmmakers, Quebecois filmmakers, because it allows the films to have international access, where distributors from around the world can see the films and can then, if we're fortunate, take the films for distribution in these various countries. So I have found that for my career, the international relationships I have with these distributors have allowed me to grow as a filmmaker, with the support of the Canadian government as an equity investor. But the foreign pre-sales are very important to the funding of my films.
Mr. Egoyan, how do you choose your stories for your films?
The stories have to speak to me personally. They need to. And I have noticed that when a story is not coming from somewhere deep inside of me, it reflects in the film. So the strongest films are the ones that are related to something specific in my experience. It can be refracted through someone else's story, but filmmaking, it's a very long-term commitment. Not only am I having to write the script or the adaptation, not only am I then trying to seek the financing for the film, trying to bring actors on, trying to find the crew, the locations, editing it, but then I had to spend a year traveling with the film, promoting it. So at all times I have to commit to a project that I know is going to consume everything I have for those 2 years. So it's very different from an actor. When you ask an actor why they choose a role, it's a short-term commitment. When you're writing and directing, it's a 2-year commitment, and you're devoting a part of your life to it.
Do Canada have any co-production or rebate schemes for Indian filmmakers?
Yes, we have a co-production agreement between Canada and India.
This is to add. Is still Toronto New Wave still on?
That's a very good question. Is the Toronto New Wave still on? We emerged in the 80s. It was a very particular group of filmmakers. And what's unusual is that we're also very close friends. So socially, we're very much on. We hang out together. But we're older. We're not making the same films that we were making at that time. We are, I think there's a new wave of Toronto filmmakers, and I'm very aware of that, and I'm aware that they're trying to find their own identity. We came at a very particular moment where there wasn't this tradition. Before us, it was a particular climate. So I don't think it exists in that way that it did in the late 80s when it emerged, but we're still making films, obviously.
Another question, please. What made you to build up 50-seater screens? What was the idea behind it? Your film bar?
Oh, yes. Well, I had this crazy idea with actually my partners, Hussein Amarshi, who is one of the more successful distributors in Canada. He runs Mongrel Media. And Hussein and I decided that we wanted to have our own cinema and bar on Queen Street. And so we invested in a building, invested in a business, and it was, he had his offices upstairs. And it was a lot of fun, but running a bar is very different from making films. And then at a certain point, TIFF Lightbox opened, and so, but it was a great opportunity. There's nothing better than an intimate space to watch films, and we both had a dream of that, and we got to do it.
Yeah, we go there. So my question goes to His Excellency. I would say, how do you look boosting film trade relationships with India? And will you be setting up new consulates across various states? And Goa also is known for its international tourism destination. So would it be one of the destinations to set up a consulate in Goa too?
Well, thank you for the question. First of all, we have 8 offices all over India. Canada does. This is our largest diplomatic footprint anywhere in the world in terms of employees, so it's a very significant presence that we have. In terms of our focus on film and television and boosting ties in this space, multiple different facets. One is just awareness building of the opportunities that exist between Canada and India, whether it's the co-production agreement, where we are encouraging collaboration in this in using the treaty, or just taking advantage of the ecosystem of talent that exists in Canada, the incentives, the locations, some of the top production, post-production, special visual effects ecosystem in the world is in Canada, and including from a training and education perspective with respect to this sector as well. And it's no surprise that even many American filmmakers are choosing to work in Canada or with Canadian partners as well because of that strength of that. So we can bring some of that here to India. So the first one really is about awareness. What we've also done is we've added new resources, new individuals that are focusing on this space. out of our consulate in Mumbai. Our Consul General leads that, and that team, as I mentioned, a number of Canadian staff are here this week in Goa at the film festival. The third thing that we're doing is also taking advantage of other opportunities. We were the feature country or the partner country at FICCI Frames this year. Earlier in September, I took a delegation of a number of filmmakers from India to TIFF in Toronto as well to showcase the opportunities there and bring that story of opportunity for Canada, India, to Canada as well. And then the fact that we have a number of filmmakers and actors from Canada here bringing that opportunity and that narrative here in India as well. So those are some of the examples. With respect to Goa, I'll just say that I'm looking forward to meeting with the Chief Minister tomorrow. We have a very strong relationship, Canada and Goa, on multiple fronts, but we certainly see potential to do more. We think the Chief Minister is spearheading a transformational change here, and Canada can very much be part of that vision in terms of doing more, boosting trade ties, boosting tourism ties, and boosting other areas of cooperation, and we look forward to really pursuing that with Goa as well.
I'm Suresh Kumar from Online Media. My question to you is to both the diplomats.
Well, it's a filmmaker. No, but he's an ambassador. Both of them are the ambassadors.
Yes, the tag of...
That's a wonderful concept. 150 ambassadors.
Is it okay? Because you had the tag.
Yes.
Yeah. My question is to both of you, sir. And the question is, one, about how is distribution happening in the new technology era, one. Second is, in animation, you are the most leading and the best in the world. Are there more things to happen, and what future are you looking at, and how are you focusing on the animation, which is the strongest from your industry, your country?
I'll just speak on animation in particular. This is an area that Canada is certainly renowned for. And then, as you say, quite a bit of collaboration between some of the top studios in the US and Canada in this space. Where we really excel is through technology and talent through the educational system in Canada as it relates to animation programs, computer animation, visual graphics. And what we're doing quite actively is promoting that talent and that educational ecosystem here in India as well. In fact, 2016, we saw a 70% increase in Indian students studying in Canada overall. And then this year to date, we're about 100%, 98% increase in Indian students studying in Canada. Of course, this is an area that features very, very prominently. So the more we can do, and where these students land in the end, whether it's in Canada or back at production houses and studios here in India or even in third countries, doesn't matter, because there's still going to be an affinity between India and Canada as a result of that experience. So we're looking to promote more in that space as well.
Two film institutes.
Yeah,
the morning session they've done.
Okay, yeah, there's quite a bit of educational collaboration happening. So, for example, last week the Vancouver Film School announced a number of partnerships with Indian partners for satellite campus programs here in India as well, to bring some of that educational talent here in India, where you won't be able to readily access it as easy in Canada if you weren't able to study there. So we're doing more and more of that and looking for opportunities to expand that because the talent is there. And, you know, there are also Indian companies that are in the post-production, visual effects, 3D conversion space that have very significant operations in Canada, out in Vancouver and other places as well, because of that educational talent ecosystem as well. I'll ask Adam.
Just to extend that, I think that the digital technologies have made physical proximity actually rather abstract. So much work is being done online. And of course, as you know, many startup companies in Canada are using Indian brain power to actually be able to design software systems. So, and these are exchanges that are happening without physical proximity, and it's really quite remarkable. Our son actually is actively involved in that, and starting a startup and using all sorts of connections with people here, and it's just a fascinating world. And of course, in terms of your question of distribution, it's wide open. I sometimes think that the idea of the feature film is rather antiquated. It's about theatrical presentation in a cinema, 2 screenings, 1 at 7, 1 at 9. But I've seen so many remarkable films here at this festival, which are 40 minutes long, 15 minutes long. And in the digital world, they can find a space that they may not be able to have found before. So it's a revolution, of course. And you know, we're still trying to deal with what that means monetarily as filmmakers, because it's not the traditional system. We don't necessarily know sometimes how to monetize that as filmmakers. And the government is trying to negotiate with major companies like Netflix to understand how to actually capitalize on that from a national point of view. It's not easy, it's complicated, but unbelievably exciting in terms of the opportunities it provides.
Yeah, my question is to Egoyan. Along with you tomorrow, the Indian Legion also will be getting a award for the Best Personality Award, Amitabh Bachchan. So how do you feel about it being considered?
How do I feel about the award? Well, I mean, I feel particularly honored because the cinema and the culture of this country has meant a lot to me as an independent filmmaker. I think, you know, the grandfather of independent filmmaking is Satyajit Ray in some ways. I mean, when I think of a film like Pather Pachali, that was made over a number of weekends, and it was done as an independent film. And I think that then I look at new films like Masal, I think was a feature film. Masan is a brilliant film, you know, and so there's an incredible spirit and vitality here. So to be honored by this particular culture means a lot to me.
I just want to add, you know, in Canada, Adam Egoyan is a legendary filmmaker, a Canada 150 ambassador, Companion of the Order of Canada, the highest honor that could be received in Canada. To have this Lifetime Achievement Award conferred at the same time that Amitabh Bachchan, which is what your question also alluded to, who is, in my view, and I can speak to this because I'm not only High Commissioner for Canada, but, you know, I go back to that comment when I was, you know, 8, 9, 10 years old. It wasn't the two-way trade or the education ties that I remember. It was Amitabh Bachchan that I remember. So I think it is an absolute thrill and an honor for Canada to be the feature country to see our legend bestowed an award at the same time as the legend in India bestowed an award as well. So that's how I think I would say I feel about that. So.
Hi, my question is for Mr. Egoyan. First of all, congratulations on the award.
Thank you.
And I also attended your masterclass this morning, and I know you were talking a lot about character development and the importance of allowing your actors to do that. So I wanted to ask you, do you think that TV shows could offer a better way to tell stories with more room for character development and experimentation? And would you consider doing a TV show with maybe Netflix, since you mentioned it earlier?
I think television is obviously the way most people are watching drama now, and the quality of work that we see on these series is exceptional. An actress I work with a number of times, Sarah Polley, has just finished an astonishing adaptation of Margaret Atwood's Alias Grace for Netflix. It was a 6-hour film. And yes, you're right, that allows very different opportunities for character development, especially a character as complex as that one, Grace Marks, that Margaret Atwood proposed. I began in television in my 20s. It funded my early features. I directed episodes of Twilight Zone, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, and other television series to finance my feature films. At the time, television was considered to be a secondary medium, and everyone wanted to make features. I'm not so sure if I was starting right now if I wouldn't dream of taking television as the primary route, because it's really become the language that most people use to access drama. It's just the new reality, and it's very exciting. It gives a lot of time for character development, and it's very actor-based. And people watch these very long movies that you could never show in a cinema. You couldn't show 6 hours in a cinema. You can show it on Netflix.
Any more questions? Yeah. If there are no more questions, I'm going to...
Yes. Yeah.
You have got one more question?
And there's someone there at the back.
Please.
I wanted to ask Your Excellency, since you are in Delhi, and Delhi is also a great place for, showing films, So why not you have a film festival of Canada in Delhi, at least?
Announcement.
I think it's a terrific idea. In fact, I think it's a super idea.
French Film Festival, we have many of them.
I think it's a great idea. I'm looking at my team.
Yeah, there is a thumbs up there.
I'm going to...
You'll soon have
I'll tell you, I'll seriously take that into consideration, and when we announce that, we'll be remembering you, and you'll be invited to cover the opening press conference.
On this particular point, I'd like to add, you'd be aware now, big cities in India are conducting literary festivals. Literary festivals. And for every literary festival, whether it is Delhi or Jaipur or Kolkata, there is a country focus. Just a few countries offer film screenings from their own country. Like the present package going around is Bonjour India from France. We're going to have the same package in Kolkata for the Kolkata Book Fair. So whenever Canada becomes the focus country at the literary festival, there should be at least 6 to 10 film packages from Canada.
Quickly respond. I think, again, that's a terrific idea. When we had Margaret Atwood, Adam Egoyan mentioned her. She was at Jaipur Lit Fest, I think, a year or 2 years ago. And we do have a number of Canadian authors come here. The question is, how do we leverage this to showcase the full scope of talent in these industries, including film, at these events? And I like the idea that you just suggested. I mentioned earlier that this is an area that we're really focused on in bolstering more than what we've done before. So if you have any other ideas, we'd love to hear them.
Connecting with this, as you mentioned, you have a big presence officially from Canada. Now, the big cities, I'm sure Bombay, I'm not too sure of Kolkata, you'll be having consulate offices. So wherever there is a consul general from Canada sitting in India, he should arrange for a screening of one Canadian film every week.
That's a lot of interest.
All are welcome. Like
Yeah.
the French or the Americans or the Brits.
Yeah.
It's a great idea. I think it's a
Yeah, I think,
fantastic
I'll add a little more for Mr. Egoyan. I walked in late because I was watching a film. Now, you said about the future perspective of television film and the television offering a bigger perspective and a bigger vision for filmmakers and the viewers. Right. Now, do you think television could offer a bigger viewership for films made exclusively for television, like Shotri Dre's Piku, Ingmar Bergman's After the Repetition, or the one film we saw recently here in Kolkata, Jean-Luc Godard, 1986, a business called cinema.
Yes. When we talk about the revolution in television, we have to remember that great filmmakers were doing some of their finest work for television long ago. Fassbinder did Berlin Alexanderplatz, which was made for German television. Bergman did Scenes from a Marriage, which was for television. So there is a tradition of this, and there's no reason why there should be a separation anymore. And we are, as I said, we're in a whole different landscape. I would say that the one thing that might be very helpful to think about is that many of these, like the Alliance Française, they have cinemas in their actual buildings sometimes. And I'm not sure what the Canada. I know Canada House in London has a cinema space, but it makes it much easier to show Canadian work if there's a space that it can be shown in a place that people know where to find it.
So, on this count, I would like to make a small announcement. In Mumbai, we are building a National Museum of Indian Cinema. It will be opened shortly, in a few months' time, and where we would be having some auditoria, and we would be very happy to extend that auditoria facility for screening of country-focused
Oh, that's
films.
a great idea.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
That's right. One more question has popped up there. Deep, go ahead.
Yeah, tell me, what is your biggest source of inspiration?
I've come to realize, actually, my biggest source of inspiration is my own background as an immigrant to Canada. I think that when you come to a country, you're always, and especially when you're speaking another language, this process of trying to understand what it means to identify and become part of a country, it brands you in a certain way. You're always aware that our personalities, our characters, our constructions, and that as an immigrant, especially I was raised on the west coast of Canada, there was no Armenian community, so we were really quite separated. That marked me in a very particular way, and that's been the biggest influence in my life.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, what began as a press conference actually turned out to be a very interactive session with 2 very good tips coming up for boosting India-Canada audiovisual cooperation. We will end this with making a small announcement on the eve of Atom receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award. His Excellency's visit to the Media Center and the red carpet of the Meditation Park. PIB is releasing a special feature written by Syed Mohammad Nawaz. It's titled Canada with Love. Are you inspired by the Bond retrospectives? Yeah. This feature will be emailed to all of you in the next half an hour's time. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, His Excellency. Thank you very much, Atom, for your time. And 1 or 2 bites.